So we have a bombing in Boston. In fact, we had 2 explosions. I'm sure you've heard about it by now. 2 people killed. One was an 8-year-old boy. And we had, as we go to air here, reports of 132 people being injured. That number could go up, could go down too. It depends on how the reporting goes. But that is obviously a lot of people being injured. It was, of course, during the Boston Marathon. The people who had won the race had finished about an hour earlier, but of course a lot of people were still running the race. In fact, some of the family members of Newtown victims were there. They're called Newtown Strong. None of them got hurt, luckily, but this is basically the scene that happened as the Boston Marathon is still continuing. There's still people in the rafters and people crossing the finish line, and this is what happened.
Over here. Hey, there's got to be people hurt up.
So as you see there, we see the first explosion. Now, obviously, there were cameras there from Boston Globe because of the marathon. It's also what's called Patriots Day in Boston, and that's when they run the marathon every year. And you see the one explosion on camera there. Then you hear the second explosion about 17 seconds in. It was obviously coordinated from the beginning. There were other reports of other bombs that did not go off. We'll get to who might have been behind this in a second, but I want to show you one other video here as well. Now you see that the bomb has already gone off there, and as you can see in the CNN video here, you see the second explosion. So they were separated, like I said, at about 17 seconds apart, and 2 explosions close to one another that went off. There were reports about explosions at the JFK Library. That turned out to be unfounded. There was a fire there, but apparently not related. So now Senator Dianne Feinstein, who is the chair of the Intelligence Committee in the Senate, says it is a terrorist incident. It could be foreign. It could be homegrown. Representative Bill Keating is the Homeland Security Committee member in the House, and he says it was, quote, a coordinated event. So right now we don't know who did it. We do know it is an act of terrorism and that it was planned out and coordinated. And apparently Boston police, as we went to air here, were guarding a person of interest in one of the local hospitals in Boston. Now, this is an interesting moment in time as we evaluate this story without knowing who did it. And I think it's very important to set the ground rules basically for how we should react no matter who did it. Now, there are some people, who, of course, who immediately think that it might have been Muslim terrorists. That suspicion is perfectly understandable. There are some who believe it might be right-wing terrorists. That suspicion is also understandable. Let me give you a sense of why. First of all, it was tax day. Second of all, it went off on Patriots Day in Massachusetts. And of course, Boston, the home of the Tea Party, meaning the original Tea Party. Now, all of that by itself means absolutely nothing. But look at what's happened in mid-April throughout American history, and recent American history, obviously, at that. Oklahoma City bombing happened on April 19th, 1995. Waco assault happened on April 19th of 1993. Columbine school shooting, April 20th of 1999. And the Virginia Tech massacre, April 16th of 2007. 2 of those days happened to be, again, on Patriots Day. Now, including the Virginia Tech. I don't think Virginia Tech had anything to do with Patriots Day, but there are a lot of people who put significance in these dates around mid-April, especially anti-government folks, especially because of Oklahoma City bombing and Waco. So is it possible that this would happen at a very similar time because of those specific dates? Of course it's possible. But our reaction should be the same either way. We shouldn't freak out in one direction, and we should make sure that justice is delivered in all directions. So by that I mean, if it's a foreign terrorist, we make sure we find out who it is. We bring the full force of the law upon them, okay? If it's a right-wing terrorist, the same exact thing. because politics will enter into this. Here's what will happen. If it's a foreign terrorist, oh, the right wing will jump up and at him, mainly the neocons. And you have to understand the right wing is a little separated here. There's a libertarian branch and an original conservative branch who's against wars. There's, of course, the neocons who can't wait for an excuse to attack another country. So if they see that it's foreign-born, they will immediately jump up and down and say, invasion, invasion. How do I know? Because it's happened before. And they criticize Democrats in the past politically for saying, oh, that this is a law enforcement matter. It's not a law enforcement matter, they said. It's a matter of war. Now, we don't know, right? Now, what if it's a right-wing terrorist group? Now, does that mean that it should also be a matter of war? And who do we invade? Do we invade ourselves? Do we invade Texas, Alabama, Oklahoma? Where do we invade? It makes no sense. Of course, it's a law enforcement matter no matter what. And the flip side of that is that that law enforcement matter should be taken incredibly serious no matter what. Now, I tell you that because right in the beginning of the Obama administration, there was a Homeland Security report that was released, and it was prepared actually by the Bush administration, saying, watch out for right-wing extremists. When that report was released, the right-wing commentators, who are not in the same batch, they're not part of the same extremists, but they felt apparently challenged by that. So Rush Limbaugh and the Fox News channels, how dare you ever mention right-wing extremism? And what did President Obama do? He was cowed as usual, and they said, we're withdrawing the report. Even though the report is absolutely true, it was put together by a Republican who later came out and said, what in the world are we doing? It turns out they took his division and they brought it down to only one person tracking right-wing extremism in the Department of Homeland Security. How many for tracking Muslim extremism? 25. Now, we've shown you numbers and statistics in the past that show you that over the same stretch of time that we're talking about here, going back to the 1990s to now, the majority of attacks have been right-wing extremists. Obviously, there's been horrific attacks by Muslim extremists, obviously 9/11 being the head of that class. Now, what I'm saying is, my God, there shouldn't be a 25-to-1 disparity, and we shouldn't ease up if it turns out it's a right-wing extremist. We certainly shouldn't ease up if it turns out it's a left-wing extremist. Now, that hasn't happened in a long time. Doesn't mean it can't happen. Our reaction should be the same no matter who the culprit is. But I'm afraid, as people often will jump up and say, you cannot mention anything but your thoughts and prayers right after this incident, too soon, too soon. But the reality is this is actually exactly the right time to say, our reaction should be the same no matter who the culprit is. So this is the time to know what the just action is in fighting back. We got to find who did it. We got to bring them to justice. And we can't underreact and we can't overreact. We have to be sensible and rational as we seek justice.